Tim Petrowich for Dateline Marion, and we're here for our weekly visit with Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. And Coach, halfway through the season now, which is kind of strange to say after only 3 games.
Yeah.
But halfway through the season, the Wildcats are 3-0, and so let's kind of take a look back. First of all, this last week, big 57-19 win over Mount Vernon. Talk about that game and maybe a little bit of a slower start than you wanted, but ultimately by halftime you had done what you wanted to do and was get Mount Vernon out of the game.
You know, Mount Vernon, as I said, their record has not been great the last couple of years, but I knew they would bring some athletes over here and play, and Evan Leake certainly was as advertised. I mean, they put him at the quarterback spot, and he threw the ball pretty well. I think better than some expected, and I think his ability to scramble and break tackles and be elusive was no surprise at all to me. So, you know, I think they presented some challenges, and I think that's the South 7. Even when a team is down, they're going to put talent on the field and good athletes on the field, and I think they've got the makings of some solid rebuilding there. They got their numbers are good, and they played a lot of young kids, and they played us tough. And I you know, you and I have talked about this before, but doesn't it always seem like Mount Vernon gives us a great game? And throw the records out, I always feel like we always have tough ball games against Mount Vernon. Even, you know, one year they had come in here either with 1 win or 0 wins, and we had to beat them late in the game on a last-second goal line stand. I mean, so it's been some battles between us, and I think a lot of credit goes to the Mount Vernon kids. They played hard.
You got the first touchdown. They came back and scored right away on a big play that kind of was a broken play on you guys defensively, is what I gathered from the sideline.
Yeah.
But after that, you know, it seemed like your team just responded and took care of business from that point on.
Yeah, I thought we just continued to execute the offense, which was the key. And I think, you know, we talk about sometimes the defense has to go out on that field and put out fires that we start, and sometimes we have to go out put out fires that they start. And we use this analogy of a fireman mentality, and that's where firemen don't hear the alarm and complain about where it's at, who did it, how come they started the fire. They put their hat on, they hop on the truck, and they go get the job done. So we try to have the mentality that if the defense gives up a score, it's the offense's job not to complain about it, but go out and put the fire out and go put some points on the board. And our defense has done that for us in the first 2 weeks of the season. They went out and they were able to stop some big opportunities the other teams had and give us the ball back and put out some fires when we couldn't score or move the ball well. And so, you know, that's the kind of thing you need to have, is that the offense picking up the defense picking up the offense, and special teams, when it can, help us both out. And special teams played much better this week.
We have talked year after year after year. It's no secret that your plan is to put the ball in as many different players' hands as possible.
Right.
Because it not only is a valuable experience, but it makes your team harder to defend.
Right.
Friday night, 9 different people caught passes, 9 different ball carriers in the game.
Oh.
And that's a lot of people putting their hands on the ball. And I know it was a lopsided game, but a lot of those people were touching the ball before it became lopsided, especially the receivers, because you didn't throw the ball a whole lot, you know, in mop-up time.
Well, you know, and it's funny because I don't think I do a lot of play calling to get a ball to a person. Now, don't get me wrong, there's occasion where a play does highlight maybe someone more, or that person is the key read, but sometimes the play is called because the play is the best play against that defense, and where the ball is distributed is based on their response, their reaction on the snap. And Hunter has done a great job, as have previous Marion quarterbacks, of finding the open man and being confident that open person was going to make the play. I don't want Hunter dropping back to pass and always thinking about Vincent. He's part of the progression, he's part of the scheme, but if he's covered, we got to go to Mason Gooch or Tyler Sema or Jake Bruce or whoever, you know, or Walker Fox. And so it's always been our way of thinking, and I think that's also helped upon graduation of a key player. You're able to have guys that have some experience get their hands on the ball. And you know, Lucas Schrum, week 1 against Carbondale, didn't have a big offensive game per se until late, but the last 2 weeks he's had a much bigger role. And that's, Devin Margam was out with some back spasms, and Lucas steps up and plays well the last 2 weeks. And so now that Devin's back, we've got some added experience and depth there. So you're right. That's part of the plan. If you've got that kind of depth, and I think this year we do.
As I watch Hunter, and you talked about this after the game, that spreading the ball around is happening naturally instead of with a concerted effort.
Yeah.
As I watch him, and he has plenty of time to throw as a general rule. The offensive line gives him plenty of time to throw, and all of a sudden he makes a throw, and I'm like, who's going to catch it this time? Because you don't know for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I thought the offensive line and the backs did a great job of offering plenty of protection last week, and he was under some duress against Cahokia, and of course they're always good at pass rush, but I thought this week we shored that up a lot better, and I think he had time to deliver the ball, which, my goodness, that makes a big difference. And you're right. I mean, I look at the game, I look at the stats, and I see the kind of game that Mason Gooch had, and I had people ask me, he didn't even play last year. He had an injured hip and didn't play. Where'd this guy come from? But we felt like last year he was going to be a player. Just he lost a year because of an injury, but it was a non-contact injury he suffered in baseball, and we're so glad he's back, and he's a valuable piece to this. But you're right. We don't go in and we don't look at the ball being thrown and know it's going to this person or that person. Sometimes Vince has now attracted some attention that's opened up some other people, and once they get attention, Vince will be back in the mix. And Tyler Sema and Talon Hance had a big catch in sophomore, and so we just feel like spreading the ball around has been key, and Hunter's done a great job of that.
You talked about this last week too. Tyler did it once, and I think on Talon's catch too. They caught the ball kind of in a vulnerable position and got hit. And not only did they hang on to the ball, but in both cases, they stayed on their feet and picked up extra yardage this week.
They did. And, Tyler, 2 weeks in a row, has made some really tough catches with contact. And then Talon, of course, makes a big catch, caught it a little bit behind him, secured it, and then broke a couple of tackles and rumbled downfield. And it's good to see a big sophomore that you're going to have the next couple of years doing some things on the offensive side. And got to tell you, just watching the film, watching him block in our change of pace offense was very impressive. And I'll give a shout out to Cole Bundren and Lucas Lanier, two juniors that are part of our offensive scheme and our two-back set, and both had good ball games. So again, two guys that have pass receptions, they had rushes, and they came at times when the games mattered. And man, that's good to see.
And they don't get enough credit. We've mentioned them a little bit here today, but the offensive line, I've got a couple of still photos that I took from Friday night, and you see that one of them is on Chase Isbell's touchdown early in the game, and there's like 4 yellow jerseys creating a wall for Chase, and he goes into the end zone untouched. And there's some other pictures where all you see is offensive linemen and fullbacks blocking for the ball carrier.
We've gotten we've had to play a number of linemen due to some minor injuries and different things, and we've had a couple of guys step up this week and fill in, and so it is literally just a offensive line by committee. But man, we had some really physical hits on film, which is great to see. And in fact, I had one forwarded to me from a friend who said, take a look at this, and something I had missed on the film because it's kind of downfield on a long run, but yeah, they're playing well. Coach Skeet does such a good job with our linemen, and defensive and offensive linemen, and so we're getting a lot of production out of them. And those good young defensive linemen continue to play well and create some havoc. And so I keep bragging on our young kids. Our older kids continue to do what they do, but coaches get excited when you got some sophomores that are contributing, like Brody Larson, picking off a couple of passes and taking one back for a score. And man, that's good. That's going to bode well for us in the fall.
So probably the one area that we've talked about and seen throughout the season that was a trouble spot was special teams. a slight adjustment in the kicking game.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this to Coach Schulmeister after the game. I said, they're running trailers now for the new Disney Plus series, something about the return of the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think of Knuckle Puck.
Yeah.
When Brody Larson kicks the football, there's a spin on it, and it's hard to feel.
I'll be completely transparent with you here. We stole that from Cahokia. So Cahokia was kicking that off to us, and it was very difficult for us to field.
Mm-hmm.
We even fumbled one of them. And we were struggling to cover kickoffs. We were either too aggressive and losing our lanes or not aggressive enough. And we were talking to the kids and asking them what we can do and give me some feedback, and they were giving us feedback. And I said, well, I'll tell you what we should just do is let's try that Cahokia kick, because it worked for them, and you don't have to put it in the end zone. It's kind of a squirrely kick, laid flat kick, and just kind of
it spins all over the place.
You don't know where it's going to go.
It's like my golf shots.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So we put that in, and it really worked well for us. So that's. So we've got Drew Garrett now, our regular kickoff person, trying that kick, and Brody's been doing it again. So that looks like our kick for the year, I guess. That's going to be our thing now. But thanks to Cahokia for that. We're not too we're not afraid to steal something from somebody if it works against us. So that's where we got it, and it worked for us.
You're on the road this Friday night. You're playing in Belleville against Althoff, and this is an Althoff team that's gone through some struggles this year. They're 0-3. They lost a couple of lopsided games. None of their games has been particularly close, but they've lost twice to Centralia and once to the Mount Vernon team that you beat with a running clock this Friday night. So I guess the first question is, how do you keep your kids focused knowing that you're playing against an opponent that has struggled so far this season?
Always a concern. There's a motto on a sign that hangs in our locker room that says it's not who you play, it's how you play. And we've been in this situation before. We've played teams many times whose records were not up to what you might think would be a standard of worry, And I mentioned the Mount Vernon team that almost beat us here one year, and I think they were 1-4 or they were 0-5. I can't remember, but it was close. Coaches lay awake at night and worry about these games, because to motivate a kid for the Carbondale game or a Heron game or something, or if you're going to play an undefeated team coming up, like Centralia right now is undefeated, you understand that you've probably got their attention by just mentioning their record. When a team comes at you at 0-3 or 1-2 or whatever the case may be for whoever you're playing, you got to make sure the kids stay focused on execution and make sure we respect everybody we play, and upsets happen, and we don't want to let them stay in the game. It is their homecoming. They'll play with a lot of pride. They have a lot of history there. So to answer your question, we'll stay on them this week. We'll be tough on them this week. We'll try to maintain a really good focus this week and make sure that we don't lower our standard at all as a coaching staff, as a program, and make sure our leaders and our team understand we're expected to go over there and do a job and do it well. So it is on our minds. It is a concern when you play a team that's 0-3. You don't want the kids to take a step back.
There's no change in game plan, is there? I mean, you've been primarily a passing team with Hunter, and I would think that for the most part that's going to stay the same.
There's no change in game plan. We're going to do what we do. We'll run some of our tight stuff. We'll run some of our spread stuff. We'll use the vertical game, and we'll try to get the ball in the hands of a lot of folks and play fast, and hopefully we can get out ahead of them early. I think in these kind of ball games, Tim, it's really important that we get out ahead early and not let them hang around. The longer the underdog hangs around, the more concern you've got. And so we need to start fast. And that's why the start to the game last Friday was bothersome, because it gave Mount Vernon, with that one long pass, renewed energy that lasted for much of the remainder of the first quarter and half of the second quarter. And I think we don't want that to happen. And you prevent that play from happening, and maybe they don't ever get that momentum that they fed off of. And so we don't want Althoff to get that.
You talked about some injuries earlier, and I think last week was a chance to get some people healthy. You mentioned Devin didn't even dress and didn't play last week. I think you were able to keep Vincent off the field on the defensive side of the ball, and he
Yeah.
only played offense and wasn't used very much. I mean, he was out there, but he only had 2 catches, so a chance for him to get a little healthy as well.
I think he's healthier. I think Gil Aguilar is healthier. I think so. We have some kids that are nursing some injuries still, but I think they're getting healthier. And like any school, we've dealt with a little bit of academic stuff. So that's rampant right now everywhere. So no issues here that other people aren't facing. We're still trying to avoid that COVID outbreak like everybody is, and paranoid of that because, as you mentioned, the SIU schedule, it's everywhere. It's a Major League Baseball again, and with the Nationals. And so, fingers crossed, keep following the protocols and try to stay safe and get through these 6 games. Hard to believe, Tim. We say football season goes fast, but this season really goes fast.
It does.
Yeah. So, we're down to 3 games, and after this, 2 weeks of practice, and spring sports are already starting, what we consider traditional spring sports.
Mm-hmm.
And so baseball and football starting now at the same time. So some of our football kids are playing baseball also. So it's a time like no other, but we'll continue to try to play our best football and keep kids enjoying this game.
And you mentioned something I do want to touch on because it's been known not only at the end of last year, but so far this year through most of this school year that the hybrid learning and the online learning has caused a lot of students some troubles. Is that one of the things that you've dealt with this team, and as far as the fact that it's a different learning environment, it's not the same as traditional, and so that maybe creates some problems?
Yeah, it's talking to coaches, and as you walked in today, I was on the phone with an area coach, and the problem is everywhere, and it's different, it's new. The kids are not in the routine that they once were. The accountability is different. Given more time to turn things in, and sometimes more time is not always a good thing because kids keep putting things off. They do that. They put things off, and so we're having to adjust to that. And we encourage the kids. We send out text messages. We tried to set up study halls. We've offered tutoring. We've done all that we can, but there's still some problems, and not just here, but I mean everywhere. Every school I talk to, every coach I talk to has dealt with that. And so we hope as school year starts in the fall, the routine of regular school sets in and we can remedy some of this.
Last question, the game Friday night in Belleville, no advanced ticket sales. They're making all tickets available at the gate. Are there going to be any restrictions on how many people from Marion can go, or is that something that...
I get the feeling that they're going to accommodate whatever we bring. So I think we'll have a good crowd, and I think they'll accommodate that.
All right. So it's Friday night in Belleville. Almost a brand new stadium.
Yeah, beautiful
it's
stadium.
Just a few years old.
Yep.
And the Wildcats play the Althoff Crusaders. That's Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.